My parents took out a $170,000 loan in my name to pay for spoiled Golden Brothers College and claimed it was my responsibility. So here I am, just 23 years old, finally out of college and thinking I am ready to take on the world. I mean, I worked my butt off to get through school and I was just starting an internship. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and for once I was feeling pretty damn proud of myself. And then one day I get this email from the bank, and at first I'm like, oh, maybe it's just another one of those generic notifications, whatever. But then I actually open it and my heart almost stops. It says I owe $170, $17,000 freaking dollars. I'm sitting there staring at the screen like, no way, this has got to be a mistake. Like, how the hell could I owe that much? My whole college tuition was supposed to be like $85. Tops, and that's if I hadn't gotten any scholarships or anything, but I did get a scholarship, so this number just doesn't make any sense. I start going over everything in my head, trying to figure out where this massive number came from. Maybe they accidentally added an extra zero or something. I know that sounds stupid, but I'm just grasping at straws at this point, so naturally I start freaking out. My mind is racing, trying to figure out what to do next. I knew I'd have some student debt, sure, but nothing even close to this. I thought I was being responsible, taking out just enough to cover what my scholarship didn't cover. Working part-time at a cafe to keep my expenses down, all that good stuff. So where the hell is this $170? I'm trying to stay calm, but I'm already sweating bullets. My mom picks up, and I'm trying to explain the situation, but she's just like, oh, don't worry, it's probably just a mix-up with the bank, we'll sort it out. But she says it in that way where I know she's not really listening, like she's already moving on to the next thing on her mind. I push a little harder, like, no mom, this is serious. The bank says I owe $170, and I need to know why. There's this awkward pause, and then she starts to say how they took out a loan in my name for my college expenses, but it shouldn't be that much. She tries to brush it off again, telling me not to stress out and we'll talk about it later, but I'm not having any of that. I ask her straight out, did you guys take out more than I needed? Like, did you take out the full amount just in case or something? And that's when she goes quiet. I can practically hear the gears turning in her head as she's trying to figure out what to do with the money she's got left. In her head, as she tries to figure out what to say next, finally she admits, well, yeah, we took out the full amount, but it was just to make sure you had enough in case your scholarship didn't cover everything. Now I'm the one who's speechless. I'm trying to wrap my head around why would they take out so much money when it wasn't necessary. I got a partial scholarship that covered a good chunk of my tuition, and the rest was covered by my job and some savings. So why did they take out $170? I start asking more questions, and finally my mom says something like, well, your brother needed some help too. My brain kind of short circuits at that point. My twin brother, Evan, didn't even go to college. He was too busy chasing his dream of being a model or some crap like that. So I'm sitting there trying to process the fact that they took out a loan in my name and gave part of it to him. I'm pissed, but I'm also confused. I mean, who would do that? Why would they put me in this kind of situation without even telling me? I start getting louder on the phone, asking her how much they gave him and why didn't they just take out a separate loan for him if he needed money so bad. But she just keeps dodging the questions, trying to calm me down and saying, we'll figure it out. Figure it out? Are you kidding me? I have a $170 debt hanging over my head, and she wants to figure it out later. I tell her we need to talk about it in person, and she reluctantly agrees. I hang up the phone and just sit there for a while, trying to stop myself from smashing something. It's like I thought I was doing everything right, and now I'm blindsided by this massive debt that I didn't even know about. I spent the next few days in this weird place, not really knowing what to do. I mean, it's not like I could just make $170,000 magically disappear and I couldn't do anything about it. Magically disappear, and I couldn't really concentrate on my work. Every time I tried to concentrate, my mind kept drifting back to that stupid email and the sinking feeling that my life was about to get a lot more complicated. When the weekend rolls around, I finally decide to go over to my parents' house to talk about this face to face, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I get to their house and the first thing I notice is how normal everything looks. How can everything be so damn normal when I have this massive problem hanging over me? My parents are sitting in the living room and I can tell by the way they're acting that they know what's coming. I sit down and jump right in, no small talk or anything. I need to know what's going on with this loan, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. My dad just sighs and starts telling me how they were trying to do what was best for me and Evan and that they didn't mean for it to turn out this way. But that's not good enough for me. I push them for details, asking them exactly how much they're paying. My dad starts to get defensive, saying they always try to treat us equally, but I can't help but feel like I'm the one getting screwed here. After what feels like hours of back and forth, they finally admit that they gave Evan $80,000 of the loan money to help him. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Evan didn't even go to college, and here I am with a debt that's more than double what I should owe. I asked them why they didn't take out a loan in his name, but they just keep coming up with excuses. His grades weren't good enough, they didn't have any other assets to use as collateral, blah blah blah. I'm pissed at this point, but I know yelling at them isn't going to fix anything. So I'm just telling them flat out that I'm not paying a dime more than what I owe for my tuition if Evan wants to waste $80,000 on whatever, that's his problem, not mine. My parents don't take that well, and my mom starts going on about how it's my respon's responsibility to help out the family and that I'm being selfish. Are you kidding me? I'm the one stuck with this massive debt because they decided to bail out Evan without even asking me. I tell them that either they need to figure out how to pay back that $80. When I leave their house, I am even more pissed off than I was before. I feel like my whole world has been turned upside down, and I have no idea what to do next. All I know is that I am not going to let them guilt me into paying off a debt that is not even mine. I go back to my house, but I can't shake the anger and frustration. It's like no matter how hard I try to do the right thing, I can't shake it. I try to do the right thing, I keep getting screwed over, and now I have to figure out how to deal with this massive debt without completely losing my mind. But one thing is for sure, I am not going down without a fight. Alright, so after this disaster of a conversation with my parents, I sit in my apartment just stewing. I can't let this go. There is no way I am just going to sit back and accept that I have this 17,000 debt hanging over my head because my parents decided to play favorites. No, I need to go back and confront them face to face, but I want to make sure I have all my facts straight. Before I do, I spend the next couple of days doing some research, looking up everything I can about student loans, how they work, what my rights are, and all that stuff. Honestly, it's overwhelming like hell. I find out enough to know that my parents took out way more money than they needed to, and they did it without me really understanding what was going on, so I decided to pay my parents another visit. This time I'm going in with a plan. I'm not just going to let them talk circles around me. I need answers, and I need them to understand that this is serious. I'm not their ATM. And I'm not going to be stuck paying off a debt that I didn't even benefit from. When I get to their house, everything seems normal again, which just makes me more upset. It's like they're living in this bubble where nothing is wrong. While I'm out here freaking out about my financial future, I walk in, and they're sitting in the living room watching TV like everything is fine. I take a deep breath and sit across from them. I take a deep breath and sit down across from them, trying to keep my composure. All right, we need to talk, I say, and they both look at me like they know what's coming but aren't thrilled about it. My dad pauses the TV, and my mom just sighs like this whole thing is such a burden on them. I start laying out everything I found out about the loan, how much I should actually owe, and how the extra $80,000 they took out is totally unnecessary. I can see my mom's face start to harden, and my dad just sits there with his arms crossed like he's waiting for me to finish my little rant. I get to the part where I ask them why they didn't just get a separate loan for Evan if he needed money so bad, and that's when my dad finally speaks up. He says something like, well, you have to understand your brother wasn't exactly in a position to get a loan on his own. His grades weren't great, and we didn't want him to start his adult life with that kind of burden. I can't believe what I'm hearing. So instead you decided to put that burden on me, I asked. Trying not to raise my voice too much, I worked my ass off to get into school to get that scholarship, and now I'm the one who's going to have to pay for Evan's. My dad gets defensive now. He starts talking about how they always tried to support us both equally and that they didn't mean for it to turn out this way, but it doesn't feel equal to me at all. It feels like they're using me to cover up for Evan's failures. I tell them point blank that I'm not going to pay back the $80,000 that they gave him. My mom is my mom's mom. That they gave him. My mom's face goes white and she starts to cry, but I don't let it get to me. I know what she's trying to do. She's trying to guilt trip me, make me feel like I'm being selfish for not wanting to take care of my family, but I don't fall for it. This time she starts in with the whole "we did this for the family" speech, saying that they were just trying to make sure that Evan had a chance to succeed just like me. But I fire back asking her how giving Evan $80,000 to blow on who knows what is to blow on who knows what is the same as me using the money to actually get an education. She doesn't have a good answer for that, so she just starts crying harder. My dad of course steps in to defend her, saying that I'm being too harsh, that I don't understand the pressure they were under. But what about the pressure I'm under now? I'm the one who's going to be stuck paying this off for who knows how long. They don't seem to understand that we've been going back and forth like this for what feels like forever. They keep trying to justify what they did, and I keep shooting down their excuses. I'm getting more and more frustrated, but I'm trying to keep it together. I don't want to lose my temper, but it's hard when it feels like they're just not listening. Finally, I decide to change tactics. I tell them if they don't pay back the $80, my dad's eyes go wide and my mom looks like she's about to have a breakdown. They start begging me not to do anything drastic, saying that it will ruin the family if I go down that road, but I'm done with their guilt trips. I tell them that either they find a way to pay back the money, or I'll have no choice but to take legal action. I can't afford to let this debt ruin my life just because they chose Evan over me. My mom finally speaks through her tears and says that they will try to work something out, but I can tell that she's just saying that to calm me down. My dad is still in shock that I would even consider taking legal action against them. I get up to leave, and as I walk out the door, my mom calls after me and asks me if I'm really going to go through with this. I just turn around and say if it comes down to it, yes, I will, then I leave and don't look back. I drive home and I start to feel this weird mix of emotions. I'm angry, of course, but I'm also sad. I didn't want it to come to this, but what choice do I have? My parents have put me in an impossible situation, and now I have to figure out how to get out of it. It sucks, but I know I have to do what's right for me by the time I get back to my apartment. I'm emotionally drained. I just collapse on the couch and stare at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. I know I'm in for a long fight, and I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but I'm ready for it. I'm starting to think about the next steps, what I need to do to protect myself legally, how I'm going to keep my head above water. I didn't expect this to be easy, but I didn't expect it to be this hard. As I lie there, I realize that this is just the beginning. There is a long road ahead of me, and I have to stay strong if I want to come out on the other side. But at least now I know what I'm up against, and I'm not backing down no matter what. After that confrontation with my parents, I realized that I couldn't just sit around and wait for them to magically fix this mess. If I've learned anything from all of this, it's that they're not exactly the type to take responsibility, so I decided that I had to take matters into my own hands and really figure out what happened with this loan. There's no way I'm going to let this debt ruin my life, especially when half of it was used to fund Evan's party or whatever he did with it. First thing I do is dig through all the paperwork I can find. I know it's not exactly exciting, but I'm desperate. I need to see if there's any way I can get out of paying that extra $80,000. I start pulling out every document I have: loan agreements, bank statements, emails, everything. I'm not even sure what I'm looking for, but I figure the more I know the better. As I go through all this, I start noticing things that don't add up, like I have these bills from college that show my tuition, but they don't match the amounts on the loan documents. There's a huge difference between what I actually owed for school and what was taken out in my name. It's frustrating as hell because it's becoming clear that my parents really did take out way more than they needed to, and they didn't even tell me about it. But what really pisses me off is when I figure out I was pretty clueless about how all this stuff worked. I mean, who really knows about loans and bank accounts when you're just trying to figure out how to be an adult? So when my parents told me to sign some papers, I didn't even think twice about it. I just trusted them. Big mistake. I find out that they had me sign over access to my bank account so they could manage my funds while I was in college. At the time, it seemed like no big deal. I thought they were just trying to help me out, make sure I didn't overspend or anything. But now that I look at those documents, I see that they used that access to take out the extra $80,000. They didn't even ask me, they just did it. I'm starting to feel like I'm being played, like they knew I didn't understand this stuff and they took advantage of that to do what they wanted. I'm getting angrier by the minute, but I'm also feeling this deep sense of betrayal. These are my parents, the people who are supposed to be looking out for me, and they're doing this. These are my parents, the people who are supposed to look out for me, and they just put me in this impossible situation. But I'm not giving up. If anything, this just makes me more determined to find a way out of this mess. I start looking up information online, trying to figure out if there's any way to undo what they did. I know it's a long shot, but I'm trying. I learned that it's possible to dispute unauthorized transactions, but it's complicated and there's a time limit on how long you have to file a complaint. I'm worried that too much time has passed, but I keep digging. While I'm doing all this research, I also start thinking about what I'm going to do about it. Evan, he's been skating by while I've been dealing with all this crap, and I'm not okay with that. I know he's my brother, but I'm tired of being the one who always has to clean up his messes. It's time for him to take some responsibility too. I decide I'm going to confront him directly, tired of letting my parents protect him from the consequences of his actions. I want to know what he did with the money, and I want to see if there's any chance he'll step up and help pay it back. I know it's a long shot. Evans has never been the responsible type, but I have to try, so one night I decide to wait up for him. My parents are already asleep, so it's the perfect time to catch him alone. When I finally hear his car pull into the driveway, my heart starts racing. And I try to keep things casual at first. I offer him some coffee and we start talking about random stuff, schoolwork, whatever. I try to build up to the money conversation without just jumping into it. I can tell he's not suspicious, which is good. He's always been the conflict avoidant type, so he's probably thinking. I finally bring up the loan. I ask him if he knows how much trouble I'm in because of the money our parents gave him. He looks at me like he has no idea what I'm talking about, which honestly pisses me off even more. I mean, how can he be clueless? I lay it all out for him, the $80,000, the loan, the fact that I'm the one who has to pay it back. He just sits there looking more and more confused. Finally, he says, "What money did I not get?" $80,000. That's when I lose it. I start to raise my voice and tell him that our parents took out this huge loan in my name and gave him the money. He just sits there with this blank look on his face. And then he finally says, "Oh, that, I thought they just gave me some money to help out with stuff." Stuff he thought they gave him $80,000 for stuff I can't do. 000 for stuff I can't even deal with this guy. I ask him what he did with the money and he just shrugs his shoulders. I don't know, he says, I guess I spent it on like traveling and going out with friends, you know, the usual. Are you kidding me? He spent $80,000 on vacations and partying while he was working. I can't even describe how angry I am at this point. I start yelling at him, telling him that he has to pay it back, that it's his responsibility. But he just looks at me like I'm crazy. He says something like, it's not my fault, Mom and Dad gave me the money, I didn't ask for it, and that's why I'm here. I didn't ask for it, and that's when I realized that he doesn't even feel bad about it. He doesn't care that I'm the one who's going to suffer because of his actions. He's just going to go on living his life like nothing's wrong. I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. I tell him I'm not going to pay a single cent of that $50,000, and if he doesn't figure it out, he's going to have to pay it back. He just laughs like I'm joking or something and says, good luck with that. I storm out of the kitchen, not even bothering to say good night. I'm so angry. I can't think straight. How did I end up in this mess? How did I get stuck with a brother who doesn't care and parents who think it's okay? I go back to my apartment and collapse on my bed feeling completely exhausted. But as tired as I am, I can't sleep. I keep going over the conversation in my head, trying to figure out what to do next. I know I can't let this go, but I'm not sure how to move forward. One thing is for sure, I'm done. If my family thinks they can just run roughshod over me, they're in for a rude awakening. I'm not backing down and I'm not giving up. It's time. So after this whole disaster with Evan, I'm back in my apartment trying to calm down. I feel like I've been punched in the gut. It's like no matter how hard I try to make sense of it all, it just keeps getting worse. It just keeps getting worse. My parents don't want to take responsibility. Evan acts like it's no big deal and I'm the one left holding the bag. I'm starting to feel like I'm fighting this battle on my own and it's exhausting. But here's the thing, I'm not the type to just roll over and let people walk all over me if they think I'm going to pay this $170. I know I can't keep doing this, just reacting to whatever they throw at me. I need to take control, set some boundaries, and make it clear that I'm not playing around anymore. I decide to give my parents one last chance to make things right before I take things to the next level. I'm done with the back and forth, the excuses, the guilt trips. They either fix this or I'm going to have to do something drastic. I'm going to have to do something drastic. I know it's a risk, but I've got nothing to lose at this point. I call them and tell them I'm coming over. My mom sounds all hesitant on the phone, like she knows something's up. But I don't give her any details. I just say we need to talk, and I'll be there soon. I'm trying to keep my emotions in check, but I'm nervous as hell. I don't know how they're going to react, but I know I have to do this when I get there. When I get to their house, it's the same old routine. They're sitting in the living room watching TV like everything's fine. I sit down and take a deep breath, trying to figure out the best way to start. I know I can't be too aggressive right away or they'll just shut down, so I start off calmly, laying out the situation again, explaining how serious this is. My mom predictably starts to get all emotional. She says that they never meant for things to get this bad, that they were just trying to help Evan, that they thought I could handle it. I've heard it all before and frankly I'm tired of hearing it. I cut her off and tell her that this isn't about Evan anymore. It's about the fact that they put me in an impossible situation and expect me to just deal with it. Then I drop the bombshell. I tell them that if they don't pay back the $80,000 they took out for Evan, I'm going to sue them. I've looked into it and I know I have a case. I explained what they did. They took out more money than I needed. They used my account to transfer money to Evan. They falsified bills. It's all grounds for a lawsuit, and if they don't fix it, I'll have no choice but to protect myself. The room goes dead silent. My mom looks like she's about to cry again, but this time it's different. I can see the panic in her eyes. My dad just stares at me like he's trying to figure out if I'm bluffing, but I'm not. I'm deadly serious, and I think they can tell. My dad is the first to speak. He tries to sound reasonable. He asks if there's any way we can work this out without the law getting involved, but I'm done negotiating. I tell them this is their mess and they need to clean it up. I'm not going to ruin my life because they decided to gamble on Evan's life, to gamble with Evan's future. My mom starts to plead with me, saying that they don't have the money, that they're already struggling, and that taking this to court would destroy our family. I almost feel bad for her, but then I remember all the stress and anxiety they've put me through, all because they couldn't be honest with me from the start. I stand my ground. I tell them I'm giving them 2 weeks to come up with a plan to pay back the money. If they don't, I'm going to kill them. I am tired of being the only one who has to make sacrifices in this family. My father starts to get angry. He says that I am being unreasonable, that I am tearing the family apart over money, but I am not going to let him guilt me this time. I tell him that they are the ones who put me in this position and I am just doing what I have to do to protect myself. The conversation goes back and forth like this for a while, but I don't back down. I keep reminding them that this is their responsibility, not mine. Finally, my dad says they'll see what they can do, but he's clearly pissed off. My mom is still crying, but I don't have the energy to comfort her. I know this sounds harsh, but I've been pushed to my limit. I leave their house feeling drained, but also relieved. I know I've done everything I can to give them a chance to make this right. If they don't, then I'll have to make good on my threat. It's not what I want, but it's what I have to do. Over the next few days, I keep waiting for my phone to ring, for them to call me and tell me they've figured something out, but all I get are a few texts from my mom asking me to reconsider, telling me how hard this is on her, how she's worried about what's going to happen to the family, but I don't budge. I just keep reminding them of the deadline, 2 weeks, that's all they have. As the days go by, I start preparing for the worst, gathering all the documents I found, printing out copies of emails, bank statements, anything that might help my case if this goes to court. I'm even talking to a lawyer, just to make sure I'm ready for whatever happens next. It feels weird, like I'm preparing for a battle against my own family, but I know it's what I have to do. I can tell my friends and my girlfriend are worried about me. They've been supportive, but they keep asking if I'm sure I want to go through with this. It's a fair question. I mean, who wants to sue their own parents? But I keep telling them the same thing. I don't have a choice. If I let this slide, I'll be paying for it for the rest of my life. Literally. Finally, the second deadline rolls around and I haven't heard a peep from my parents. I'm starting to think that they're just going to ignore this and hope that I'll back down. But they don't know me as well as they think they do. I don't back down. I text my mom one last time, reminding her of the deadline and letting her know that if I don't hear from her by the end of the day, I'll file the lawsuit in the morning. That night, I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like I'm about to cross some invisible line. It's a weird mix of emotions, anger, sadness, fear, but also a strange sense of relief. I've done everything I can to give them a chance. Now whatever happens next is on them. The next morning I wake up to a text from my mom. It's short, just a few lines, but it says everything I need to know. We're working on getting the money together. Please don't do anything yet. We'll talk soon. It's not exactly the resolution I was hoping for, but it's something. I write back telling her they have 1 more week to come up with a concrete plan. If they do, I will hold off on the lawsuit, but if they are just stalling, I will not hesitate to go through with it. For now, all I can do is wait and see what they come up with. I hope they finally do the right thing, but I am not holding my breath. Either way, I am ready for whatever comes next. For whatever comes next, this is far from over, but at least I know I'm not alone in this fight anymore. Update 1. So after this last text from my mom, I'm left in this weird limbo where I'm waiting to see if they're actually going to go through with it or if they're just stringing me along. It's frustrating as hell, but at the same time I'm trying to keep myself grounded. I know I need to be ready for whatever comes next, whether it's them paying up or me having to take this on. I keep checking my phone, waiting for a text, a call, something. I try to stay patient, but it's hard when I feel like everything is hanging in the balance. I start thinking about what this is doing to my relationship with them, how it's all falling apart, and how there's probably no going back. Then out of nowhere I get a call from my dad. It's late at night and I'm already half asleep. When my phone starts ringing, I pick it up, and before I can even say hello, he's yelling at me. He's going on about how I'm tearing the family apart, how I'm being selfish, and how they've done everything for me, and this is how I'm repaying them. I try to stay calm. But I'm half awake and his words hit me hard. It's like every guilt trip he's ever laid on me, all wrapped up in one angry tirade. He says things like, do you really want to be the reason your mother ends up in the hospital, and Evan is already struggling, and now you want to make things worse for him? It's all the same stuff I've heard before, but it's more intense this time, like he's desperate. I let him finish his tirade before I say anything. I let him finish his rant before I say anything, trying to think of how to respond without losing my cool. But it's hard. Finally, I just tell him, Dad, this isn't about breaking up the family, it's about what's fair. You guys put me in a position where I have to protect myself, and that's what I'm doing. But he's not having any of it. He keeps yelling that I'm being unreasonable, that I'm causing all the stress for no reason, and that I should just let it go and trust them to handle it. But how can I trust them after everything they've done? Lying to me, taking advantage of me, and now trying to make me feel like the bad guy. For standing up for myself, I tell them that I have already given them more than enough chances to make this right, and that if they don't come up with the money, I will have no choice but to go through with my plans. He starts to get even angrier, but I cut him off and say, Dad, this conversation is going nowhere. I've made my decision and I'm not backing down. He hangs up and I'm left staring at my phone, feeling like I've just been punched in the gut. It sucks, but I know I did the right thing. I can't keep letting them guilt me into doing what they want. This is my life and I need to take control of it the next time. The next morning I wake up to a bunch of texts from my mom. They're all over the place. Some are her trying to reason with me. Some are more guilt trips, and some are just flat out begging me to drop this whole thing. She says things like, we're your parents, we would never do anything to hurt you, and Evan is your brother. He needs your support, not your anger, but I can't get sucked into this again. I've been down this road too many times and I know where it leads, getting screwed over while they act like everything's fine. I text her back and tell her I'm still waiting for them to come up with a plan to pay back the money. She doesn't respond right away, But when she finally does, it's just more of the same. She says they're trying their best, but they don't have the money right now and that I need to be patient. It's frustrating. But at this point, I'm not surprised that I'm getting screwed. I'm starting to think that they never intended to pay me back. They just wanted to see if they could wear me down until I gave up. A few more days go by and I'm getting more and more anxious. I know the deadline is coming up and I need to be ready to make good on my threat if they don't deliver. Then, on the last day of the deadline, I get another call, this time from Evan, and I'm surprised because he's been pretty quiet since we last talked. So I pick up the phone and he's not yelling like my dad. I'm skeptical, but I let him talk. He says he's been thinking about what I said and that he understands why I'm angry. He even admits that he shouldn't have taken the money without asking, and that he shouldn't have done it. He even admits that he shouldn't have taken the money without asking and that he should have been more responsible with it. But then he drops the bomb that he has no way to pay it back. He's still not making any money from his modeling gigs, and he's barely scraping by as it is. I tell him that I appreciate him admitting that he messed up, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm the one who's stuck with the debt. I tell him that if he can't pay it back, then our parents will have to take care of it. He sighs and says he'll talk to them. But I can tell he's not optimistic. He knows as well as I do that they're in no hurry to pay up. We end the call on a tense note, and I'm left feeling even more drained than before. It's like every time I think I'm getting closer to a resolution, something else pops up to drag me back down. The next day, I get I know this is it, the moment of truth. Either my parents come up with the money or I take them to court. I send my mom one last text, reminding her of the deadline and letting her know that if they don't have the money by the end of the day, I will file a lawsuit. I start to accept that this is really happening, that I have to take my own parents to court to get what is owed to me. It feels surreal, like I am living in some kind of twisted reality where nothing makes sense. Then, just as I'm about to give up hope, I get a text from my dad. It's short and to the point. He says they've managed to get some money together and they'll be able to pay me back in installments. He doesn't apologize, doesn't say anything about how they treated me, just that they'll start paying me back. It's not exactly the victory I was hoping for. Not exactly the victory I was hoping for, but it's something. At least now I know they're taking me seriously. I text him back and tell him I'll accept the payments, but I'll keep a close eye on them to make sure they follow through. I also tell him that if they miss a single payment, I'll file a lawsuit. He immediately agrees, and so I finally feel like I'm getting some control back over my life, but it's bittersweet. I had to fight tooth and nail to get here, and my relationship with my parents and my brother is probably irreparable, but at least now I can move forward knowing that I did what I had to do to protect myself. It's a weird feeling, relief mixed with sadness, anger mixed with a sense of closure, but I know one thing for sure. I'm not going to let them take advantage of me ever again. This is the start of a new chapter and I'm determined to make the most of it. No matter what update too. So after my dad agreed to start paying me back, I'm going to start working. I mean, it wasn't exactly the resolution I was hoping for, but at least they were taking some responsibility. I thought, okay, we can do this, we can just move on and I can focus on my life again, but of course nothing is ever that simple with my dad. Nothing's ever that easy with my family, so the first few payments came through and I started to feel like there was some light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't much, but it was something, and I held on to it like a lifeline. I even started to think that maybe in time we could repair some of the damage that had been done. I know I must have been out of my mind to think that then out of nowhere the payments just stopped. No warning, no explanation, nothing. I sit there refreshing my bank account thinking maybe there was some kind of glitch, but no, nothing. Days go by and still no sign of the money. I try to stay calm, telling myself not to worry. I try to stay calm, tell myself not to jump to conclusions, but deep down I'm starting to get that sinking feeling again. I give it a few more days, try to convince myself that they're just late, that they'll come through eventually, but as the days turn into weeks I can't ignore the truth anymore. They're not going to pay, they've gone back. They're not going to pay, they've gone back on their word, just like they always do, and here I am back to square one with nothing to show for all the stress and heartache I've gone through. I'm pissed beyond pissed. I feel like they've been playing me this whole time, trying to keep me off their backs until they thought I'd let it go. But I'm not. Let it go. But I'm not going to let them screw me over again. I pick up my phone and start drafting a text to my dad, laying it all out. I tell them they missed their payment and I'm not going to take it anymore. I give them one last chance to explain, but I make it clear that if I don't hear from them by the end of the day, I will file the lawsuit first thing in the morning. I send the text and then I wait and wait and wait the whole time. I walk around my apartment trying to keep myself from going completely crazy. I check my phone every few minutes, but there's no response. It's like they've decided to I'm done being patient, done being understanding. Finally, after what feels like forever, my phone buzzes. It's a text from my mom, and I can tell from the first few words that it's not going to be okay. Okay. She says they're sorry they missed the payment, but things have been tough lately and they just don't have the money right now. She asks me to give them more time, to be patient, to understand that they're doing the best they can. I read it and I just feel this wave of frustration and anger wash over me. I know they're not doing the best they can. They're just trying to buy more time, hoping that I'll finally let it go. But I can't let it go. I've already given them more chances than they deserve, and they've done nothing but take advantage of me. I write back, and I'm not holding back this time. I tell her that I've given them enough. I tell her that I have given them enough time, that I have been more than patient, and that I am done waiting. I tell her that if they do not have the money by tomorrow, I will file a lawsuit. No more excuses, no more delays. I am tired of being treated like a doormat. The rest of the day is a blur of emotions. I am angry, frustrated, but also just exhausted. I feel like I've been fighting this battle for so long and I'm running out of steam. But I know I can't give up now. If I let them win, I'll never be able to look at myself in the mirror again. So I brace myself for what comes next, knowing it won't be easy. That night, I can't sleep. I'm tossing and turning, my mind racing, my heart pounding. I keep going over the conversations, the broken promises, the lies, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that it's always been this way. The next morning, I wake up feeling like I've been hit by a truck. I'm exhausted, emotionally drained, but I know I have to see this through. I get up, make some coffee, and start gathering all the documents I need to file the lawsuit. I have organized everything, every piece of evidence, every email, every text. I know my case is solid, but that doesn't make it any easier. Just as I'm about to walk out the door to meet with my lawyer, my phone rings. It's my mom. I pick it up and she's crying on the other end of the line, begging me not to go through with the lawsuit, saying that they'll figure something out, that they'll get the money somehow. I listen to her and for a moment I feel this pang of guilt. I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to be the reason my family is falling apart. I don't want to be the reason my family is falling apart. But then I remember all the times they hurt me, all the times they let me down, and I steel myself away. I tell her that I've already given them more than enough chances and I'm not backing down. She keeps crying, keeps begging, but I just keep repeating the same thing. I'm not backing down. I don't back down, and finally she gives up and hangs up, and I'm left standing there feeling like the worst person in the world. But I know I can't get sucked into her drama again. I have to stay strong. I have to protect myself, even if it means hurting the people I care about. I meet with my lawyer later that day, and we start the process of filing the lawsuit. It's surreal sitting there in his office signing papers that could change everything. Part of me is still hoping that they'll come through at the last minute, that they'll finally do the right thing, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath. Over the next few days, I start getting calls and texts from family members, cousins, aunts, even a couple of friends. Words have come out about the lawsuit and everyone has an opinion. It's hard to hear, especially from people I thought I could count on. But I know they don't understand what I've been through. They don't know the whole story. They only see the surface, not the years of frustration and hurt that led to this point. I'm trying not to let it get to me, but it's hard. I feel like I'm losing everything: my family, my support system, all because I decided to stand up for myself. But then I remind myself why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because I deserve better. I'm doing it because I deserve better, because I'm tired of being the one who always has to sacrifice. I'm doing it because I need to take control of my life, even if it means burning some bridges along the way. And so I keep moving forward. It's not easy, and I know there's a long road ahead of me. But I'm determined to see this through to the end. I've come too far to turn back now. This is my life, my future, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me. Update 3. So here we are. It's been a few weeks since I filed the lawsuit against my parents, and honestly, it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done. I never thought I would be in this position, fighting my own family in court, but I guess life has a way of throwing you into situations you never imagined. If you told me a year ago that I would be suing my parents, I would have laughed in your face, but here we are. First thing, I noticed after the news broke how quickly people took sides. It's like everyone in the family had an opinion, and most of them weren't afraid to share it. Some of my cousins reached out to say they were proud of me for standing up for myself, but a lot of the older relatives they kept saying things like family should come first or you don't air your dirty laundry in public. It was like they expected me to just take the hit and move on, all for the sake of keeping the peace. But what peace? My parents had already shattered any sense of trust one had in them. They and Evan, well, he still acted like this was all my fault, like I was the one who had done something wrong. I can't even count how many times I heard the word ungrateful thrown around. They acted like I should be thanking them for everything they had done for me, like saddling me with a $170,000 debt was some kind of gift. 000 debt was some kind of gift. The court stuff started out slow, which was kind of expected. Lawyers going back and forth, papers being filed, dates being set. It's all a bunch of legal crap that makes your head spin, but my lawyer was great at keeping me in the loop and explaining things in a way that didn't make me feel like a total idiot. Still, every time I had to go to a meeting or sign something, it was like I was a total idiot. Or had to sign something, it was like a punch in the gut. A reminder that this wasn't just some nightmare I could wake up from. It was my reality. Then about a week ago, things took a turn. My lawyer called to let me know that my parents wanted to settle. I guess they finally realized that I wasn't going to back down and that this was going to cost them a lot more than just $80. I wasn't surprised. They've always been more about saving face than actually doing what's right, but still, hearing that they wanted to settle was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, if only a little. We met at my lawyer's office. My parents looked exhausted. Like this whole thing had taken a toll on them too. My mom couldn't even make eye contact with me, and my dad, well, he just looked pissed, like he couldn't believe it. It had come to the point where I was the one making them pay for their mistakes. The settlement talks were tense. My lawyer did most of the talking, which I was grateful for because I don't know if I could have kept my cool. My parents tried to negotiate by offering less than what they owed, but my lawyer wouldn't have it. He made it clear that we had a solid case and that they would end up paying a lot more if they didn't settle now. In the end, they agreed to pay back the full $80. I got what I wanted, but at what cost? My relationship with my parents is beyond repair, and Evan, well, he didn't even show up. I guess he figured it wasn't his problem anymore now that Mom and Dad were paying up. As we left the office, my mom tried to talk to me. She said she was sorry. They never meant for things to get this bad, but I couldn't. I just told her it was too late for apologies. Maybe that sounds harsh, but you can only hear sorry so many times before it loses all meaning. Actions speak louder than words, and her actions were pretty damn loud. My dad didn't say anything as we left. He just walked out, not even looking back. I stood there for a minute watching them go, and it hit me that this might be the last time. How do you come back from something like that? It's not like we can just pretend it never happened. Too much was said, too many lines were crossed, and honestly, I'm not sure I even want to try to fix things, not after everything. The money came through a few days later, and I used it to pay off the last of the loan. I'm debt-free now, but it doesn't feel as great as I thought it would. There's this hole where my family used to be, and I'm not sure how to fill it. My friends have been amazing, and my girlfriend has been my rock through all of this, but there's still this hole. It's like no matter how messed up things were with my parents, they were still my parents, and now they're just people I used to know. I'm trying to move on, focus on the future. My internship turned into a full-time job, and I'm doing well. I've started looking at apartments, thinking about maybe moving to a new city, getting a fresh start, but it's hard to shake the feeling that I'm leaving something important behind, even if that something was toxic as hell. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, if maybe I should have just let it go. Take the hit and keep the peace, but then I remember how they treated me, how they used me, and I know I did what I had to do. It's just that doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it just feels necessary, so now I'm trying to figure out what comes next, trying to rebuild my life without the people who were supposed to be there for me. It's not easy, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't have doubts, but I'm learning to trust myself, to believe that I can stand on my own 2 feet without needing their approval. And I think that's what this whole mess has taught me, that I'm stronger than I ever knew, that I don't have to keep fighting for people who don't have my back. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time I'm okay with it. I'm ready to start living my life for me and not for anyone else, and maybe that's the best outcome I could have hoped for.